Hello everyone! The 73rd episode came out just now, and it was the most emotional episode so far that even managed to melt my heart. And it inspired me to remember the most tragic and emotional moments in the whole series, and make a video dedicated to them. And I know that it may be pretty unexpected for some people to hear that such saga as freaking Skibidi toilets has its own really deep emotional scenes. So today's video will be the necessary one to watch for such people. And also, if you're a true fan of the series, you'll definitely love tickling your nostalgia a little bit. Okay, so get your tea and snacks ready now, and prepare to watch this video to the end, because I saved the best part of the video for later as always. Let's go! So, today's top is going to include mostly the events and scenes from later episodes of the series when it got more developed, complex, and longer. But it doesn't mean that the earliest episodes of Skibidi Toilets didn't have their peak emotional moments as well. So on 10th place, we have the iconic moment from episode 35, when the first version of anti-parasite cannon had been developed, and initially there was a whole team of scientist cameramen responsible for such an invention, and my favorite guy, Make a Scientist Cameraman, was in the leading position for that. But at the moment of that episode, he was not Mecha yet, and he was just an ordinary cameraman scientist, and the POV. And in this episode, we saw how the process of testing this brand new revolutionary weapon was roughly interrupted by G-Man and Titan Speakerman, who was infected earlier, which was also pretty tragic to see. And then we saw a really emotional scene that got lots of viewers, myself included, back in the day of its release. Firstly, this cameraman scientist tries to free the poor Titan, but the cannon is not yet developed enough for that. So he just loses time to escape, and it's literal seconds from his destruction, and at the very last moment he decides to toss the precious prototype to Mecha Cameraman's hands. With this brave act, he saves the cannon, but perishes himself, and I still remember this guy till this day. And so should you, my friends. As of speaking of the anti-parasite cannon, this is actually not the last time I'm about to mention it in this video, because on 9th place we have the scene from episode 55, when due to the Astro Toilet sabotage, the already upgraded anti-parasite cannon that was fully ready to free the infected Titan Speakerman of all his miseries got destroyed by the disgusting Skull Skibidi. And it was a terrible tragedy at the time, because so many efforts were put into developing such a tricky weapon, and so many sacrifices were given for this weapon to get modernized and upgraded only for us to see how it gets destroyed within literal seconds. And it was even more heartbreaking to realize that Titan Cameraman could have easily prevented this from happening only if he wasn't distracted by the vicious Astro Toilet. In any case, what's done is done, and after this scene, all the viewers were left with the hopeless minds, because how exactly would the mission about the freeing Titan Speakerman be fulfilled then, when the anti-parasite cannon was no more? This scene definitely got us sitting at the edge of our seats, but unfortunately this was not the last tragic event we were meant to see during this plot arc. Okay, and now let's move on to the next spot. So on 8th place we have something pretty unusual, but hear me out, because it seems really interesting to me. In my opinion, lots of people actually overlooked the impact that the whole process of infection and control had over Titan Speakerman. Just think about this. Our bold Chad was infected in episode 32, and got finally freed only by the end of episode 57. So I can definitely say that he was fighting for his sanity with the terrible parasite for more than 20 episodes, which is just crazy. And although it's still not really clear whether he was conscious all the time of what his infected and controlled body had been doing all that time, while destroying and hurting his comrades and friends, it's quite obvious to me that when he got finally freed, he was full of mindless fury and despair, and it even looked like Titan Cameraman was seriously worrying for his friend that he can actually fall into insanity afterwards or something like that. And at this time, I was really worrying for our Red Chat as well, because not everyone could have withstood such a terrible influence on one's mind and nervous system, if robots even have it, of course. But in the end, Titan Speakerman turned out to be just fine, although I can still see some traces of the old trauma in here. And of course in here. So I find this detail about Titan Speakerman, who just escaped the control of Skibidi Scientist and the support from his friends, really wholesome. And also the fact that the freed Titan Speakerman motivated the race of Speakermen to show up and have their hopes up again really made my heart melt. Let's move to 7th place now, where we have another iconic moment that definitely got imprinted to the memory of Skibidi Toilet audience. And this is the moment from episode 60 when we all thought that the original G-Man was about to get betrayed by the fraction of Astro Toilets who probably planned to destroy him for whatever reason. And this secret is still not revealed by this day. Plus, consider the fact that we didn't know for sure at that time that G-Man had clones and decoys. We only speculated about this, but there weren't some concrete proofs. So it was still possible for us to assume that it was the original G-Man who was on the brink of destruction in this episode, and it even gave an impression that he had been left by any of his comrades, which made my heart soften even for such scoundrel like him. But of course, later in this episode we found out that Skibidi scientist showed up just in the right moment to help his comrade against the Astro Toilets, and that they are still battle buddies, kinda. But the whole scene before that was really intense, and it was actually so memorable that Boom decided to recreate it again in the latest episode, so it definitely deserves its spot in my list. And on 6th place, I put something really special. You all must already know how much I love Mecha Cameraman Scientist character due to multiple reasons, but main of them are his brevity and cleverness. And also consider the fact that he was basically the last alive member from his squad of scientists cameramen that were all gradually destroyed in the first half of the series. He was the only one who could use his brain to develop the anti-parasite cannon and also invent some other technical pieces for the Alliance. So that's why the episode 48 literally broke my heart when Mecha Cameraman served as the POV, and at the end of this episode he was cut in two by the terrifying buzzsaw Skibidi. I actually believed that we could never see our best guy again, but boy, I was wrong, and I was really happy about it. Because my favorite Mecha Cameraman made his comeback not once, but twice in the series. The first time he proved to me his wit once again, and it explained how he managed to escape another world. Plus, I understood a few new details about cameramen's bodies thanks to him and how they live and pass away. And then, Mecha Cameraman did an even more epic return, the latest episode of the series, and right now, I'm still holding my fingers crossed for him to pull this through and stay alive no matter what, because his exosuit was destroyed. And what I'm also hoping for, guys, is that you already subscribed to my YouTube channel and visited my Discord channel. You certainly did it, right? Okay, let's move on then. And on 5th place, we have a scene that everybody remembered and cried about. When the infiltration squad entered the bunker, it suffered a few terrible sacrifices. So by the end of their mission, very few members were left. But let's not talk about them now, because as the squad moved deeper in the bunker, the sacrifices kind of became an obvious thing. But it all started with two particular tragedies. The first one belonged to the big Speakerman Blood who sacrificed himself in order to give Plungerman an opportunity to enter the bunker with the rest of the squad. And another one was about the big blue-shirted cameraman who passed away in the elevator from all the terrible attacks from Skibidi Kleiner and provided POV Plungerman with the protective lens before that. These two moments really were enough to make a grown man cry, especially considering the fact that this exact protective lens saved the Plungerman's life afterwards in episode 70. And these two dramatic events were also crucial for Plungerman's character as he became more desperate, ruthless, and emotional the longer he stayed in that bunker. And we'll definitely talk about it as well. But for now, let's move to the next spot in my list. So let's move to the 4th place, which is safely occupied with the scene that can make even Skibidi toilet doubters believe that this series is actually as serious as the whole freaking Marvel projects that constantly try to make you weep as Lil Baby. And I'm talking about Titan Cameraman being hypnotized and mind-stupefied by Skibidi scientists so that he tries to unalive himself with his own saw at first. And then as his little bro, Titan Speakerman courageously tries to stop him no matter what, and even at risk of being fried himself, he is being made to confront him too. And all that was happening under the vile observation of both Skibidi scientist and G-Man, who laughed as they watched Titan Cameraman being a mere puppet in their freaky hands. This was really heartbreaking to see, and lots of viewers, myself included, were really concerned about Titan Cameraman's future, and whether he would manage to survive or not. But thankfully, the bigger brother showed up in this scene later, and of course I'm talking about the crazy upgraded Titan TV man who got up on the stage like a real Chad and showed all these evil asses who's the real boss in here. And by the way, I'm really hoping for him to do something similar in the fight with G-Man or Astro Toilets in the future episodes of the series as well. So yeah, these two scenes mashed back to back was a real emotional roller coaster, and they deserve to be put that high on my list. Okay, and it's time to announce the 3rd place, and I'm pretty sure that the majority of you guys saw it coming. Because no list like this could have existed without the presence of Simp Cameraman and his bittersweet plot arc with TV Woman. At first, his character and his hot and cold relationships with TV Woman served more like a comedy relief for the viewers so that they wouldn't get too tired of action sequences only, but then it evolved into something much more tragic. So in episode 57, Plungerman gets fatally injured while trying to calm down the infected Titan Speakerman, but an old friend could not recognize his comrade, so he knocks him down, and then we see two injured cameramen on the battlefield, and another is Simp Cameraman. And fortunately, TV Woman appears again and changes the course of the whole fight. And then, as in episode 49, she's here to get the wounded to safety. So she takes the wounded Plungerman with her, but pays no mind to the poor Simp Cameraman, and it's intended in this scene that she never returns to help him again. So the poor guy gets left in the metal debris, desperately reaching out his hands to her, but Lady Luck is not on his side anymore. This scene is still really devastating to watch up to this day, I must tell you. Okay, and now it's time to move to the last two spots that are in the highest positions in this list. So in the second place, we have the Dark Speakerman and Plungerman and their tense relationships inside of the Skibidi bunker. As I mentioned earlier, all these sacrifices really affected Plungerman. So as he went deeper into the bunker, his character started to change gradually. He became more ruthless and desperate. And it seemed like only the Dark Speakerman managed to stay cold-blooded and rational. So that's why when he preferred to close the doors and let the slowed, green-suited cameramen get destroyed by the hands of Skibidi Jackson right in front on Plungerman's face, the latter couldn't hold himself any longer and they almost broke into a fight. But the Dark Speakerman understood that his angered friend is in the really devastated state of mind right now, and he leaves from a fight with him like a real Chad and still tries to help Plungerman later as they are in the bunker, but Plungerman doesn't trust him anymore and angrily refuses. This moment was really tense, and as the person who loves and respects both of these Chads, it was really hard for me to watch their comradeship falling apart at that moment. But everything was changed at the end of episode 70, and here's what gave us the most tragic moment in the series. And of course, I'm talking about the last fight between the Dark Speakerman and Plungerman and their arch-enemy, Skibidi Scientist. We all know what happened afterwards, right? It still aches me to this day to remember this whole freaking episode. Well, the only thing that still keeps me up at night sometimes is what Boom told in his exclusive interviews to two Russian Skibidi bloggers, that there is a vague possibility for us to see the return of either one or both of these Chads. And although I don't fully believe it myself, it's always nice to have some hope. But still, this scene where two Chads are finally at peace one with another and ready to be called brothers even, have to say goodbye to each other, and have such a terribly sad ending for themselves after everything they pulled through and managed to do, it still makes my eyes watery, you know. And in the first place, we have the events of the latest episode we all waited so long for. And it's also connected to Plungerman, or maybe should I say Dave. And also to his warm relationships with Kathy, who was always known to us as Camera Woman. We always suspected that she likes Plungerman, but as this episode came out, it turned out that everything is much more complicated and tragic. They were not just occasional friends, but colleagues that knew each other for a really long time. And they later became the elite cameramen agents together as well. There is definitely some bigger mystery that also unites them, but what caught my attention is how greatly Dave's passing affected Kathy. She now tries to avenge her fallen friend and even uses his plunger as a weapon, which made my heart shattered into pieces. And the way she constantly rewatches the memories with him even adds more salt to the wound. And that was all for today. Right now, I'm really eager to see what the next episode will bring us, but I also hope that you enjoyed today's video and that it entertained you enough. So give this video like if you did, and be sure to subscribe to my channel not to miss my new videos. And that was me, Iso Toilet. See ya!